Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, seriously, I hated every second of that yesterday, and it was well beyond just the loss. As you probably might have noticed in all the interviews I did, including Chad Buchanan leading up to the whole Paris trip, I hated the fact that this team was playing its best basketball of the season. And then all of a sudden you change things up and you go over there and you sightsee and you have a fashion show. And I can't imagine where basketball all of a sudden does not become secondary. You try as much as you can. Listen, basketball did not look secondary to San Antonio. If I were the Pacers, I'd be more pissed about that than anything. San Antonio, the second half, running up and down the floor and giggling and laughing. And hell, you would too if you were scoring at will against a very disinterested-looking second-half Pacer team. But the whole thing is going to turn out to be one incredible pain in the ass. Now, you could say this. It does hinge on coming up tomorrow at noon. And if they can even things up, everybody will feel better about it. But my concern is once they get back on Wednesday and how they're going to look coming up on Wednesday. And these are important games here. And you finally got the team that you really wanted to see, you're excited about seeing. And, all of a sudden you derail that so the NBA can go over to Paris and pat themselves on the back and have NBA dignitaries and have a hell of a time and then watch the Pacers give up a $140 to a team that had lost 3 straight. I brought up that 2017 game where they lost to Denver, if you remember, in London. And the Pacers entered that game in 2017, winners of 5 straight. Denver entered that game in 2017, losers of 5 straight. And the Pacers got absolutely depantsed in that one. It felt very similar to that. And it stunk. Again, you can get a lot of that back coming up tomorrow. But we'll also see on the back end of this if there is any effect. I just think it's a complete pain. And if you're going to go, send the broadcast teams too. You imagine that? If I'm going to get derailed from a show yesterday, can it not be for something like that where you're broadcasting remotely? And you only have the crowd. There wasn't a lot of crowd noise anyway, certainly not for the Pacers. But if you're going to take me off for 3 hours, can it be something better than that game? For goodness sake. I'd be pissed off if I take that back. I wouldn't, because I probably wouldn't want to go. But if everybody else went and I was both broadcast teams and radio and TV, and, if I'm Boyle and Company and Pat Boylan, and I'm downtown at the field house, or if I'm, Denary and JJ and Chris and Quinn, and I have to drive over to St. Louis for this, then I wouldn't like that at all. I wouldn't like that anymore. So I think this whole thing sucks. And yesterday certainly was the mountaintop of suckage without question. Just getting embarrassed for a team that was playing so well. Exciting. We're kind of wondering. And now everybody's going to talk about it in terms of what they need for the trade deadline, which I don't know how in the world they're going to end up doing it for the trade deadline. So we can talk about that if you like. Very important to get back on the winning track if you have any pride whatsoever. You lay down the law with this San Antonio if you're capable of doing it coming up tomorrow. That was flat embarrassing. I was embarrassed for him. Up and down, layup line, dunk fest, giggling, laughing at your expense. So we'll see how prideful that the fellas in blue and gold. I said yesterday, and I was kind of half-assedly joking. I said, fuel up the jet, get on, and say the hell with this Saturday thing and come back. Just go. If that's how it's going to be. You're going to get worked that much. Then in the second half, you just kind of bail on it. Hell. I'd have rather been in here, to be honest with you. Most days I like to have the day off, but that was not quite the content that I was digging. Discussion with you and me forthcoming. Bob Lovell is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. We got both college and high school. We are hitting a very important time of the season for both. Got a big one at Mackey Arena in West Lafayette later on tonight. If you missed my conversation with Dusty May, podcast at 1075thefan.com, the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines. That was a fun conversation a couple of days ago. And the Boilermakers coming off what was, I think, surprising for everybody. And a home loss to Ohio State in a game they had zero business losing. Now, I know this. I know this to be true. You're getting used to the travel, and you get back home. It's the whole no legs, the same thing that the Pacers, we'll talk about this crap next week. Get back, have no legs, lack of inspiration against Detroit. Detroit's going to have that thing dialed in. You know that. There's some motivation right there. Like, I will say this. The Pacers should have a similar level of motivation as clearly San Antonio showed. Like, the Pacers should have motivation coming up tomorrow, like Detroit's going to have motivation when they're here on Wednesday. 140-110 was your final from Paris yesterday. Same two teams right here coming up tomorrow afternoon. That's 11:30 pregame show right here. You know, on top of that, noon is the tip time. Boilermakers in Michigan coming up later on tonight. That is the Friday night college basketball Big Ten showcase that basically everybody hates. A big one for both. It's an opportunity for Michigan, don't get me wrong. And if you're the Boilers, you kind of already blew what was a really good positioning statement for yourself mid-season on the road out west, and then you come back and you stink it up with, 29 or so points in the second half. You give up 40-plus to Ohio State at home. There was zero business in that. So speaking of motivation, there should be a little bit of that coming up tonight at Mackey Arena in West Lafayette. Mike Wells going to join us across the board. We'll talk about the new hire for the Colts as well as defensive coordinator. Yeah, it's funny. Our friend Lance McAllister and our, I guess all of our friends, right, over at 700 WLW in Cincinnati or whatever the other sports station is over there. It's funny how things work. Over there, they talk about how, hey, we're going to get rid of the defensive coordinator and things are going to get better now. And here, hey, we're going to get rid of the defensive coordinator and hire the most recently fired defensive coordinator and things are going to get better around here. It is very funny how things work out like that. But most of the time, that's your choice. That's what you're getting with right there. Yeah, somebody that most recently got canned. I mean, really, you look across the board, you're going to be dealing with somebody that got canned by somebody else. I guess not in the case of Wink Martindale, who looks like he just may end up, or thought about making the jump at least, from Michigan. But Dennis Allen was at the top of everybody's list. I mean, who knows if that would have worked out, and he was going to cherry pick where he ultimately got to go for round number 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 12. And it probably was not going to be a stop to where you look at it and it could be a one-and-done situation. So I don't think anybody blames him for that at all. All right. I understand, like, Skivvies, we love Miles, but he played awful. All right, he played awful. You know who else played awful? About all of them. All right, I think everybody recognizes it, but I do know this, that everybody gets on him before you get on anybody else, because that's how you all work. Here's the other thing, too. I don't give a fat crap about how any of these guys dressed prior to. The last thing in the world I've ever cared about is how another man dresses. I don't care how other dudes dress. That's just me. Maybe it's not you. Scared? I doubt it. Half-assed, not ready, taking a beating? Probably so. Overmatched? Yes. Yes. How about them all? You just factor in them all? Because I got news for you. They all sucked yesterday. They gave up 140. It wasn't just about one guy. Hey, $250 million guy might want to go ahead and crank up some scoring at some point, too. You want to do that? So, yes, it was all awful. And I'm sorry, this is going to turn out to be a badass idea. Good Lord, how they dressed. Well, I knew right then and there how they were dressed. You weren't in on it because I knew going over there that it was going to be a pain. Can you imagine if I cared about how another dude dressed? Holy crap. Beautiful. Hey, I knew what they had on before the game, how they were going to play. I knew getting on the stinking jet to go over there how they were going to play. That was my major concern. I don't know if anybody else had that concern. Everybody else I talked to kind of just go, oh, I don't know. Sure as hell wasn't worried about what the hell they wore to the game. The hell kind of stupidity is that? I digress. Boilermakers, Michigan, coming up later on tonight. IU. By the way, I was down there today, did a little hoopage. I absolutely love the Hyper. Always have and always will. The Hyper is, if you love basketball, it's never been state of the art. Well, maybe it once upon a time in the 1920s or something. But to me, it's always going to be state of the art. I just love going in there. Now, I love it. It's like Hinkle when the light comes down and you get a little sun field going in there. Oh, man. So shout out to Josh Dowling and to Mike Ross, who got me in this morning, played about 10 games down there midday, had an absolute blast, fired it up, and came back up here. So thank you very much to those guys and the guys that allowed me to play down there. It does stir a lot of memories. And I was telling Jake this. They have and I'm assuming this has been for a long time because he is an alum, a Dick Enberg room, who is the late, great, just an incredible level broadcaster. And they've got his accomplishments and kind of his timeline on the wall over there. That's really cool. So cool. But thanks to everybody who let me down at the Hyper today. I think I am going to go back at some point. IU and Maryland coming up on Sunday. If you remember last Tuesday, we talked to Rayfell Davis, former Boilermaker, Big Ten Network analyst, and he thought we were all going a little bit over the top on Mike Woodson. Now, it wasn't Mike Woodson's fault. It's the player's fault. Well, I got news for you. It's Mike Woodson's fault. It has been Mike Woodson's fault, and it's also the player's fault. And normally in coaching, you're as good as your players play. This is not virgin territory for anybody here. So we disagreed on a variety of things. And at the end of the conversation, I said, all right, come back on Tuesday, and we'll find out what they do on the road Wednesday at Northwestern, find out what they do at home against Maryland. We'll reconvene and then talk it out and see if anything has changed. And we'll do that coming up after the Sunday matchup at home against Maryland. I mean, I can flat tell you this. People, and you got to understand, people just get tired of it. And you're ready to move on. At this point in time, I think I have more question that this outfit is ever going to be anywhere in the ballpark of the way that it once was. I'd had questions about that, and I always thought, this is not going to be that bad, and it's turned out to be that bad. So these are all legitimate arguments. All fan bases are chock full of nuts. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's why you're fans. But you're not wrong to be as, no pun intended here, hypercritical as you have been about this entire situation. And when you say, well, normally you don't care that much about, the Purdue thing. Well, the Purdue thing, doesn't have an issue outside of losing games and blowing a game in the second half on Tuesday, which sucked. And nobody is comparing IU basketball, certainly with Butler in the careometer, if you will. IU basketball has just kind of been viewed differently. And it's funny, it used to be viewed differently for a good reason, and now it's viewed differently for a bad reason. So believe me, I understand that it's going to be more than just a 2-game sample size that really makes any sort of difference here. But I'm just here to support those of you out there that know that this is an all-encompassing situation. You're absolutely right. It's like the Colts. There's no defense here. You defend with evidence. And there's no evidence. It's like I said the entire time about what they're doing now. It would have been okay with me. In fact, that would have been my judgment call to make sweeping changes because there's been no evidence that any of this crap is going to work. And the same thing holds true with IU basketball. Zero evidence of it. Think about it from an IU football basis. They had to prove it. And nobody was buying that, and still to the bitter end, there weren't a lot of people buying it. And now you're off to proving it on a different level. Proving your philosophy is right with what you did at quarterback last year with Curtis Rourke, what you're doing at quarterback this year, and then how you filter in and utilize the rules of today as best you can. But IU has evidence in football. IU has zero evidence in basketball. Nothing. The only thing you have, again, much like the Colts, is you cross your fingers and you hope that year number 9 is going to be different for Chris Ballard. You hope that year number 3 for the coach and the quarterback is going to be different. And it's funny, after year number 1, there was evidence there for Shane Steichen, but year number 2 kind of put that balance off kilter a little bit there, didn't it? So this is not just some snap, red-assed, half-assed judgment that you would make on an ESPN yip-yap show. This is actually watching, understanding, and placing evidence in the categories to firm up your belief. Yeah, not just in terms of hope. So last week when we were talking about that with Rafael Davis, that it wasn't about the fact that, well, you're just being hardcore, you're just kind of jumping on, and, you got the mob mentality against Mike Woodson. Mike Woodson has created that because of a complete and utter lack of success. He's created that with help from others, but he has completed that on his own. That's what you have to deal with. And it's much larger than just, well, you know what, I'm going to feel better after 2 games. I don't know how many it's going to take, but it is a step-by-step process. And getting back to last week, up until the Ohio State game, that was a feel-good. Northwestern brought it back down, and we'll see what a home date will do against Maryland coming up on Sunday. Very important it is. All right, discussion at 239-1070. We'll go over the championship games in the NFL too. I like Jimmy Cook a great deal. I really do. And I know sometimes I just kind of stick it to him about Arrowhead being a toilet, but that is my true belief. I was there, and it was an absolute toilet. I hated every second of it. Hated it. And it was well beyond the fact that the Colts lost. It had nothing to do with it. The whole thing sucked. I hated the experience. And it's what I brought up a little bit earlier. When you win so much, people get tired of you. there's no greater feeling in the world when everybody else is tired of you to the point to where they're all in on Buffalo. I mean, really, what other reason do you have to be all in on Buffalo? You don't really care. But you are because and Kansas City's not done anything wrong. It doesn't seem like that they have any horses' asses there that you can go, well, I don't like that guy for this. I mean, I know some of you knuckleheads probably will say, well, there's too much of Taylor Swift and blah, blah. Well, I mean, that's just stupid. What there's too much of is there's too much of winning. And that is, to me, if you're a fan of or a part of that organization, that would be the absolute best when you see everybody go from, wow, you know what a great story, to this whole thing sucks, and I hope when it's you against the world because of that, that's extra special. So the 2 championship games, we'll get to that. The other thing, too, like I consider Nick Sirianno a horse's ass, so I hope they lose. Washington, they're fun to watch, and Jaden Daniels, and that's been great. I always found it interesting because of the story I had mid-season about Anthony Richardson, and the people on his side wanted him to be more like, and not as a quarterback performing, but just as a quarterback and how he leads the team, more like Jaden Daniels, and we've seen how that's worked out. That is a lot of work to do for Anthony Richardson, certainly in year number 3. All right, 239-1070. Billy Idol tickets to give away a little bit later on. When's Tom Crean on the show? James, give me a rundown. Go.
We got Coach coming up at 3:30. We got Tom Crean 4:30. We got Don Fischer at 5, and then Mike Wells at 5:30.
Well, holy crap. Don Fisher's on this show. Mike Wells is on this show. Tom Crean's on this show. Bob Lovell coming up at the bottom of the hour. I don't know if my headphones are jacked up as what, but I don't know why they would be. Is it just kind of the yankage here that goes down, or what? Because it keeps cutting in and out, and it's going to piss me off. Because I'm already a little pissed, and it's going to piss me off even more.
Yeah, you could have a bad
everywhere you go around here, you've just got a graveyard of jackass-like headphones. I mean, it's tired. They're just laying everywhere. And, I mean, I bet none of these pieces of crap work.
Probably
none
not.
of them. I keep these on my desk, and for some reason now nothing works. I think it's up here. I think it's this right here.
Yeah. Is it, coming out?
I tell you what I do. It really, if you're watching inside the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, this works now. I think if I hold it with my left thumb the entire stinking show, I think I'll be okay. Does it look okay?
Yeah, just got to hold that exact pose for 3 hours.
I'll look exactly like the old school announcers who used to put their right hand up to their ear like this. This is going to be me.
It was International DJ Week, or DJ Day, wasn't it?
Yeah. See, now it's in and out right here. Let me tell you this. Since I come in here on Saturday myself and do the JMV takeover, somebody else is going to find these in their desk.
I think you could get away with it, too.
Somebody else is going to find these James in their desk. Somebody's going to go, wait a minute, what's happening here?
It's going to be like the
horse.
Are
these mine? Oh, yeah, they're yours.
It's going to be like the horse's head in The Godfather.
Somebody else is going to find these in their desk, baby. That's for sure. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Across-the-board conversation, me and Ewan at 239-1070 as well. Billy Idol tickets. It is a busy Friday. I got to make up for yesterday's loss of content for that blank show in Paris. 239-1070, the stream, the app, the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Join the show. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
have a Diablo sandwich, a Dr. Pepper, make it fast. I'm in a damn hurry.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
This is a busy show for today. Thank you for joining us. Just me and my jacked up headphones. Hey, James, watch this. On, off, on, off. 2 ear, 1 ear, 2 ear, 1 ear. James over there, I'm John. Billy Idol tickets still to come. Tom Crean, Mike Wells, Don Fischer, Purdue, Mackey Arena, Michigan later on tonight. Part 2 tomorrow at noon from that Parisian blank show we got to witness yesterday in game number 1 between the Spurs and the Pacers. That's coming up tomorrow. 11:30 coverage begins tomorrow morning right here on The Fan. Meantime, with the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, back-to-back Friday and Saturday, not just here, but on Network Indiana affiliated stations. Indiana Sports Talk's the show. Bob Lovell is the host. He joins us now. Hello, Bob. How are you?
I'm great, John. How are you?
I am outstanding. You can't really tell because my attitude's a little down. I think I'm a little salty today, a little bit.
And today is any different than any other day because of
just a little bit salty, Bob, about having to sit through that Pacer thing, and really made me feel worse. I had all this great 3 hours worth of content yesterday, but instead they gave up $140 on the road in Paris in my time slot. About smooching my rear end on that one yesterday, right, Bob? Holy crap.
Just
kill me a little bit more.
Sometimes, when you
taking
when
one
you
for
travel,
the team is what I was doing there, Bob.
I understand, and sometimes you just look. You don't know what's going to happen when you travel. Your transcontinental type travel. You don't know. I mean, jet lag is real, and
that's why it's better off you didn't go.
Handle it well.
Could you not just turn down the whole thing? You know what? We don't want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I'm just saying, I say that, but I also say, the question you have to ask is, okay, so if you want to use jet lag and all the other things as some kind of excuse, what about the Spurs? They made the same trip.
Oh, yeah, no.
Trip than you guys did.
They were just laughing
there
and
too many ways to defend it.
Laughing and giggling and dunking and playing like they were playing noon ball someplace yesterday at the expense of the Pacers. By the way, part 2 is coming up tomorrow. Oh, so we're well past the midpoint of both the girls and the boys seasons right now, high school-wise, aren't we?
Well, girls' pairing show is Sunday, John.
That's crazy.
We're past
Where are you guys going to put Center Grove? I'm curious about that. You guys know yet? Do they tell you?
No, heavens no.
They don't?
No, we show up and I read and Greg talks and everybody has fun, and then the conspiracy theorists come out. And
so does Nighting do they have like one of these things to make the pairings like one of those old school bingo cages where the balls are all in there and they just like wind them up kind of thing?
They actually do have a machine that pops in each tennis ball. As a matter of fact, they have a newer one. I think this is the second year that they have it. One of my most prized possessions is the commissioner gave me a ping pong ball with playing field on it because each school has its own ping pong ball that pops up, and that's how they do it. Yeah, I mean, they're not sitting in some back room deciding who wants to play whom. It's actually done. And it's been done this way for a long, long time, and they get the ping pong ball started up, and they start to slot them in, and who's playing whom. That's how this goes.
Oh, do they ever forget to make anybody's ball? Like they go, oh man, we forgot to make Medora's ball. Hell, we forgot.
I'm not aware of that, but you do have situations where schools. I think there are 2 this year who are choosing not to play in the tournament, and I mean I just got that note yesterday.
Who's choosing not to play? I've not seen this story.
You're going to make me have to look that up, and that's not happening right now. A couple of teams aren't, and so
I can think of some good teams that might have a good idea for them not to play. But yeah, I mean,
absolutely
maybe one where I'm from. Yeah,
it's one of those weekends where everybody's excited. I mean, the girls' basketball tournament starts before we know it. So if you think about it, you got the pairing show Sunday. Next week will be the last week of the regular season, and then they'll toss it up for real in the tournament the following week. So that's where we are. which means clearly that you're not far behind on the boys' side.
No, you're not whatsoever. What stand? We'll go back to the fellas here for a moment. Bob Lovell, Indiana Sports Talks on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. Express Pro Tire and Auto brings Bob to you and me every Friday here on the Fan. What stood out to you so far in the boys' season? We've talked about Fischer's here, and obviously in the classes, each class has some really standout play, but I think you always start with that Fischer's team to this point, don't you?
It's amazing what they've done, to be honest. I mean, they won last year convincingly, and you look at who they lost. They lost some talented kids, brought back some talented kids too. But think about this. The schedule they play might be one of the top 10 at least top 10 in the state. They play a difficult schedule, night in and night out. They've been number one. Everybody tries to elevate their game and knock them off, and they just keep doing what they do. I think Coach Weininger's got a group of kids that share the ball, something you're not familiar with, but they share the ball, and they guard you. They're tough matchups, and they play well together as a group.
Well, ultimately, it's got to go to the same spot. I mean, hell, you just trust some more than others to get it to where it needs to go, don't you? To massage it in there, right, Bob?
I am sorry for bringing. I am sorry I brought up.
I'm just saying.
I'm sharing the ball's a good concept. I understand that. I didn't believe in it either, John. So and it worked out well for me. So I understand.
I advised Bob Lovell joins us. I advised everybody before, you get the best player, arguably, I don't know how much of an argument there is in the state right now, before he shuffles off to Storrs, Connecticut, and plays in the Big East, to get a look-see at the high school level at Greenfield Central. That's been worth the price of admission for a while now, hasn't it?
No question. I mean, that's well stated. He is legit. I mean, he has unlimited range, kind of like you. This is kind of the same scouting report, unlimited range. And he doesn't force things, and he can make big shots. He can score in traffic. He can score whatever way possible. He can score. He's that good. He's that legit. And so, there's a reason why his team's 12-2 and ranked number 3 in 4A. And if you haven't had a chance to see him, I think you would not be disappointed when you saw him play. And he has a group of teammates who understand and have bought into their roles. They share the ball. They take some of the pressure off of him, but he's going to meet, he's seen every conceivable defense that's out there, and he just keeps knocking down shots, and they keep winning.
I'm assuming he's played against a double team basically the last full 2 years, without question, right? That's the way this has been?
I think he's seen some kind of gimmick every time he goes out. Boxing 1, triangling 2, doubling, Jordan rules from the old days. When he crosses midcourt, you double him, make him give it up. It's an interesting strategy because he plays pretty well without the basketball. So, but whatever you can think, whatever way you can devise to try to gimmick it up, junk it up, I'm sure he's seen it.
Yeah, it's a Bob Lovell, Indiana Sports Talk, tonight, tomorrow night, Network Indiana affiliation. Bob, every Friday, right here. Brought to you by Express Pro Tire and Auto. He's on the Indiana Donor Network. Check that, I'm sorry. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. That was the B1057 show, the JMV Takeover. Kind of snuck in there just a little bit. I did notice this. Kyle Neddenrip mentioned that he did get a chance to slide down the Redneck Audubon, getting off there at 2:31 and watching Bloomfield and Clay City. Some 1A talent, and the Eels of the city of Clay legit as a 12-1 squad at this point of the season.
Absolutely. That was a pretty good ball game.
Yeah, it was.
Like a 4-point ball game. The Clay City won. But they're 12-1. Single A, as you know, is pretty strong. I mean, you think about Clay City, you got Orleans is playing well, Bloomfield near and dear to your heart. They're number 4. The Hauser Jets, not far away in Hope, Indiana, are pretty good. So there's some really solid single A teams. Bar Reeve obviously is they're a little bit down this year, so to speak, but they're still really, really good. So I'm sure Kyle enjoyed the trip down to the city of Clay, as you point out.
City of
and
Clay.
He saw a great game. He saw a great game, and as you well know, some really good teams down in that part of the state.
Yeah, Blake Neal's a good player for Bloomfield. His dad was the head coach there. Is the head coach in Martinsville now, and that's
right.
Growing up friend of mine, JB Neal from Eastern Green, right there.
JB made the move, and so having some struggles down there. Always hard when you take over a program, and so but he had great teams down in that part of the state when he was down there.
Well, he had to get up to Martinsville so he could coach up a Wolf kid. You got to coach up Ryan Wolf's kid, who of the Wolf family, certainly along with his sister Izzy, the finest of the finest, right there. Friends forever. I love watching those kids play.
Absolutely, it's fun family, basketball family, no question.
All right, I got to let you go here. So Sunday, the girls' high school sectional pairing show, correct?
Correct. 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Greg Rakestraw and I will be live from the IHSAA headquarters on many of these same stations around the state that I say every Friday and Saturday. And so it'll be fun. It's on the IHSA Champions Network, and we're in the middle. I know I'm in the middle of preparing for it. There's a lot of work to do.
Well, I called Paul Neidig already, and I said, hey, make sure the Eastern gets a pretty good draw. Be good with Center Grove. And the reason why I'm saying this is because there's going to be like a handful of jackasses out there are going to go, well, you're the one that said you called the commissioner and you're getting preferential treatment. So I'm just kind of laying the groundwork because I want to hear that in response.
I don't think they want to hear that, and you wouldn't be surprised. I get a number of calls and texts and emails from people saying, "Hey, can you give us an early heads up on who we're going to play?" Yeah.
Well, just so you know, if your favorite team is in the sectional with one of my favorite teams, my solid influence will take its toll on your team. Remember that.
Yeah, I always tell them if I'm not interested in giving up the job, and if I was, this would not be the way I'd do it. So it's just everybody, everyone's excited. Yep. They want to know who's playing whom.
My good man, you're going to be here forever, and that's a damn good thing for us all. Indiana Sports Talk. Bob Lovell, our friend, brought to you by Express Pro Tire and Auto, 13 Central Indiana. Joe Childers run locations on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Bob, I appreciate that. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, John. You do the same.
Bob Lovell. Yeah, watch out for my influence. I want to get that out there to see if I do get jackassery in a response. Because that's really fun. Tom Crean after 4. Mike Wells, Don Fischer after 5. Billy Idol at some point, ticket-wise, before the end of the show. Will you stay right there? The AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, AAA.com. Make sure that you get in on all the great deals and become a AAA member today. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
A second to get on the stool because he's under 5 feet tall.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Pete Carroll, Raiders, according to sources. A Schottenheimer to the Cowboys. We heard about that yesterday. I'll be honest with you, regarding this Cohen dude back and forth between Tampa and Jacksonville, who cares? And I'll be honest with you, if I'm a Colts fan, I would be careful where I would lob my, well, this is an absolute blank show down there in Jacksonville. Now you're going to fire your coach, keep the GM, and now you're going to decide to get rid of your GM and bring in the OC from Tampa. The OC decides to stay the OC in Tampa, but now secretly the OC is off to Jacksonville to become the next head coach. But before you start pointing the finger at the blank shows and other places, long, hard look in the mirror until otherwise notified. The way that it is. And then, I tell you, if this season does clarify everything, the house is clean, everybody is feeling good again, and the winning fires back up, and then you can look down your nose at everybody else. But until that point in time, you are everybody else. So you know. Pacers back at it tomorrow, speaking of blank show. The Parisian blank show part 2, hopefully not. I'll ease up on having this particular opinion if they can even this bad boy out. Yesterday was just awful. And then it compounds. Like, I like doing the show, and to have 3 hours sidetracked, derailed because of that crap. Please. Tomorrow at noon, right back here. And then next Wednesday against the toilet. 239-1070 before the top of the hour. We're going to the 4 o'clock hour. Tom Crean's going to join us, but I want to squeeze in Tim here. Hello, Tim. How are you? Tim, are you there? James, you have Tim up? James set Tim up, and Tim's not there. Tim was not ready for prime time. Way to go, Tim. All right, I'm going to take an early break here. If that's cool. I'm going to take an early one to come back, and we'll line up. We got, 20 minutes coming up after 4 here before Tom Crean is going to join us of ESPN. Busy rest of the show. Billy Idol tickets also coming up, too. But your calls on the other side. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Remember, become a AAA member today. An incredibly smart move you're going to make. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan. WeGrowHairIndy.com. It's 888-724-5129. Real. I mean, your real growing hair. It's a phone call away. Make that call. Dial Darren Andrews at 888-724-5129. Get it all going the way that you want it to go. And that's your real growing hair again. This is not a pipe dream. This is not a fantasy. This is not a myth. This is not a legend. This is the absolute truth. If you want your real growing hair again, 888-724-5129. And you know what? If you really want to ask me about it, do it. I will tell you, 9 years. And it's like I'm turning back the clock. It's a beautiful thing. If you want your real growing hair again, 888-724-5129. WeGrowHairIndy.com today. Big fan of the District Tap, 2 locations, Northside, Clearwater Crossing, downtown Indy, as well as you should be. I'm also a big fan of Happy Hour. Happy Hour specials, $4 across the board. You're going to absolutely love that. Both locations, Northside and in downtown Indy. And know this to be true. When there is a downtown event that is going on, make sure you're a part of it with the District Tap before and then after, once again, with the great food, the great drink specials, the great entertainment they're going to have in-house as well. Ask about the music, ask about the catering, ask about the event space. Downtown, Northside, Clearwater Crossing, everybody, that's the District Tap. You can find out more online at thedistricttap.com.
The Ride with JMV.
Sportos, motorheads, geeks, sluts, bloods, wastoids, dweebies, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Purdue, Michigan later on tonight. Boilermaker fans, I want to get your thoughts. You should have an incredibly motivated group considering the second half on Tuesday night against Ohio State. Michigan and Dusty May. I don't know. Do we have podcast availability? Somebody asked me right now if we do. Hell, I don't know. I always thought so. And until I am told otherwise, it should be there. Me, Dusty May, earlier this week regarding that matchup, what he likes about the Boilers, what he likes about his team, playing 2 bigs at the same time with a lot of people nowadays in basketball refusing to do. And you're number 1 for my fellow Eastern Green Thunderbird Dusty May, podcast 1075thefan.com. Let me say, if there's an issue with it, let me know, and then I'll go ahead and send that down the line. But I don't know for sure. Dusty May a little bit earlier this week. Chad Buchanan for Paris. We have documented the disaster that was yesterday. 1-game disaster, but a disaster nonetheless for that 1 game. The strong feelings about Paris coming at I don't know if there is ever a good time, but it's sure as hell not a time when you're 14-4 in your last 18 and you're top 5 in defense and you surrender $140 to a team going into that game yesterday that had lost 3 straight like San Antonio had. You cannot talk about yesterday enough. I'm not suggesting that all of a sudden everything is lost. What I am suggesting is that was absolute murder on the eyeballs or the ears. And for a team that had been playing so well, it gives me a great deal of evidence, as I've talked about on this show already, that maybe a Parisian gathering for 2 games in January during the season when you're playing well was not altogether the best in timing. In fact, it stinks. Now, make up for it tomorrow, and I'll feel a lot better. I'll come in here lighthearted and jovial on Monday. But until that point in time, the whole thing stinks. Really, you look back to 2017 when they were in London against Denver, there are so many similarities. The way the 2 teams entered that game, the way the 2 teams exited that game, what transpired during the game. Really was incredible stuff. Boilermakers, Michigan, later on tonight, 8 o'clock. That's a Fox, I believe, broadcast, right, tonight? The 8 o'clock Friday window, I believe IU Purdue next Friday is going to be in the 8 o'clock Friday window. IU Maryland coming up on Sunday. That is a noon start, and we'll talk about that and more. Big Ten basketball around the country. Tom Crean's going to join us from ESPN, the former Hoosier coach. That's set to go at 4:30 today. Butler, but Chris Holtmann, the return of Chris Holtmann. coming up tomorrow afternoon. Hinkle Fieldhouse. You get Butler and you get DePaul. And congratulations, I believe I saw this accurately. Paul Casaro, you're number one, the head coach of IU Indy, the Jaguars, has already in this season won more games than they did a year ago. So good for Paul. You know how much I love Paul and Mike Burris, another Greene Countyan right there. Job well done so far this season. Stay after. And again, they would tell you we're not at all even close to satisfied, but you hope that this thing, as it looks, is being coached by the right dude, which I believe firmly it is, and on the right track right now. I should say dudes. We got that. We got the championship games of the NFL coming up this weekend. We got transfer portal stuff. What the hell? We got coaches going every which direction, old guys, young guys, names that you know. Teams making changes. Cincinnati believes they got better by dumping a DC. Colts fans believe they got a lot better by getting the dumped DC. Just some really good stuff. Don Fischer, Mike Wells also still to come. 239-1070. I mentioned 4 o'clock hour. I got time for your calls. We'll start it here with Billy. Hello, Bill. How are you?
JMV, how you doing today?
I'm working in and out of one earphone right here. I have malfunctioning headphones at this point in time.
Oh, man.
I know it. Nothing craps on my day more than malfunctioning headphones, Billy.
Man, I tell you, I can see that, man. Hey, nothing was more malfunctional than the Pacers were in the second half last night. And I watched them play, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. I think they quit on Carlisle during the second half, and I think they're going to quit on him for the next couple months. And I think the Pacers are going to have to make a coaching change because
I do not think it's that drastic, Billy. I don't think it's that drastic. I mean, I know I'm making light of it. I just didn't like the trip in general. So that gave me a little bit of fuel to my rage today. I just didn't like it. I didn't. The timing of it, I loved the way they were playing, and I just think this disrupts everything. And I thought you saw a great deal of that disruption yesterday. But, again, it's all on their shoulders. I don't think it's what and how that you see it regarding their head coach.
Well, I certainly hope not. But I wanted to get your opinion on one thing. The greatest athlete that ever came out of the city of Indianapolis, in my opinion, was Major Taylor. People don't know Major Taylor. You need to Google him and everything because he was the greatest athlete in the world in the late 1890s. He was a cyclist. He was the best cyclist in the world. And I think they still have the velodrome out on the west side, but there was nobody better than Major Taylor, in my opinion, the greatest.
Do they still utilize the velodrome over there? Do you know that? Do they still utilize that?
I had never heard of anybody getting on it. If not, and that was built for the Pan Am Games, wasn't it?
I think it was, yeah.
So that's just another example of the city, the organization pouring money into the city.
Could I ride my old school Huffy over there, you think, and do a lap or two? Did you have a Huffy like I did? My Huffy bike.
I had a Huffy and I had a Schwinn Collegiate. It was navy blue. And it was bad, but that was a 10-speed of choice back in the day.
Yeah, the Schwinn. I had an off-road Huffy. Huffy was always the off-road bike of choice. And I'm thinking maybe it was a piece of crap. I'm not sure.
Well, I tell you, I'm looking forward to next Friday. I'm really I don't know what to do and everything. Haven't been a remote this week, and I'm just kind of wandering around thinking that something should be happening that it just isn't. But I'm looking forward to Working Man's Friend.
I am too, buddy. I am too.
Double cheeseburger, man. I'm
trying to think how I'm going to navigate that. I think I'm going to get a couple of patties and put some cottage cheese on top of it over there. What do you think?
It's probably real good. Oh, I've had blue cheese. I've had blue cheese on the hamburger before. But
protein that bad boy up, Billy.
That's right.
So
we look forward to seeing you next week.
Billy, as always, thank you very much. Brian Thomas says that the Velodrome is a skate park now, like Tony Hawk skate park stuff. Well, holy crap. Like skateboard. JMV, if you had a Huffy, I was a biking poser. Yeah, I probably was. But I also had a motorcycle. Well, you guys are all pedaling around. I had a dirt bike, baby. It was a Suzuki. I went from an 80 to a 125, James. I was a badass dude, but I didn't wear a helmet. It was a Bell helmet. It had a visor on it. I'm glad I wore a helmet, too, because I hit my head on everything. I fell off the back of it. We used to ramp everything because I grew up in an era in which Evel Knievel was not going. I mean, I was probably years after it, but when I was really little, he was a phenomenon. So we tried to ramp absolutely everything back then.
Helmets are cool because brain injuries suck.
Yes, exactly. Big time helmet guy. Suzuki, I had a orange DS 80 and an orange DS 125.
I've never ridden a motorbike or a dirt bike or anything like that.
You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
You've never done a wheelie? You've never ramped something?
Nope.
You've
never even been on an ATV.
You've never, James, you come from Brownsburg?
I do.
So you have never stopped in the middle of cow flop and then spun out all over the back of somebody behind you? Oh, man. We used to get in a parade in my hometown, had something called Founders Day. We got in a parade, and I always tried to get in because they would the horses and stuff would be in front of us, and I'd get in the horse crap and, like, spin out and spin on the people behind me. You never did that?
I did not, know. Sounds like I missed out on a
you missed
formative
out on
experience.
a lot right there. I can't believe I'm on a show with a producer that's never spun out in cow crap. Alex writes this. So just about every successful coach has been fired in their career. I don't know why people are dumping on the guy just because he was fired. Colts fired Vic Fangio once upon a time, and I bet the Colts fans would love to have Fangio back. Anybody you were going to hire here had been fired. I mean, hell, Dennis Allen was number one on everybody's list, and he was the captain of fired. I'd be more concerned about the personnel and the mixture than anything else right here. I would say that. And I will also suggest that in Cincinnati, that's what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, you get him out of here and he goes someplace else and we're going to get better. And here, that's what you're going to say because you could have replaced Gus Bradley with James, who's never spun out in cow crap in his life. And everybody would have felt better about the defense. Let's just face it. I mean, it was anybody but Gus. Anybody but Gus. You guys would have taken Gus Van Zant over Gus Bradley. True story. Luke writes this. The Velodrome is not a skate park. The Major Taylor skate park is just next to the Velodrome. Years of skating there, and I've never seen the Velodrome being used. It always looks weird because, I mean, you kind of got to go sideways a little bit, right? Like this. It's not flat. Always looks kind of fun, though. Derek's at 239-1070 next on this show. Derek, welcome in. Go ahead.
Happy Friday, JMV. Hey, the Velodrome does get used. I think Marion University has a team that's actually supposed to be pretty top-notch.
Really? They have a biking team?
Yes.
It's not like the IU Little 500 stuff, right? With the cutters and all that crap?
No.
Oh, okay.
More geared towards, like, the Olympic stuff. And there is a skate park by it. And the skate park does get used. I think it's through the Parks Department or whatever. But so that's one thing. I think, your Colts takes lately, you've been preaching it.
You're preaching.
Spot on. Yes.
Massage my ego a little bit here, Derek. What am I most spot on about here, in your opinion?
Ballard. Let's just start it from the top. Ballard,
that's no breaking news right there, is it?
No news.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what was so sad about the day that the season ended when we got that news about him. But anyway, I'll be interested to see what I think you're spot on with. The biggest thing is if there's no personnel changes of any kind, I don't think flipping a coach is going to do much. They really need to go out and get some talent. They have multiple holes. They've got to make some big decisions on somebody like Blackman, who is, I think, very talented. And has proven himself to provide them with quality time, especially playing hurt. I mean, I kind of think like Blackman and Pittman in their defense of not having as productive a season as the public might think they should, kind of got a little character insight because both those guys were hurt for a long time and maybe there was nobody behind them and they felt like they had an obligation to play. But the biggest thing I would tell you is the Pacers thing. I know you're really worried about that their momentum got crushed. I think this is actually kind of a good character test for them. They were a couple of games ahead of other teams as far as the number of games they played. My guess is this is probably a good little team-building thing for them. And while we really should expect that there's going to be some hype about Wemby being there, and if we get a split out of this thing, I think we're going to be just fine. Eager to hear what you have to say.
Hopefully you're right.
That.
Derek, you have a great weekend. Thank you very much. Nah, man, you make all the sense in the world. I don't know about the whole character thing. I always thought, and this is just me, and it's maybe because my character was so lowbrow, but I always thought the character thing, that was the last thing that you would grasp onto in the midst of getting your ass whipped. Hey, that's a character builder. Like, I never felt, because I've had a lot of experience getting my ass whipped, that my character was constructed out of getting my ass whipped. I never thought, oh, man, I'm glad that happened because I feel much better in my character. Like, I think my character would have been a whole hell of a lot better had I not had my ass whipped. Right? But no, Derek's right. I mean, it could be a one-game situation. Matter of fact, let's just hold Derek to this. He better be right. It better be a one-game situation. How in the world would you go out there tomorrow? And I don't care where you're playing. If you're playing in Paris, France, or Paris, Illinois. How would you go out there tomorrow and just not want to shred that team, especially, I'm not the only one that saw the laughing and the joking and the giggling going on at the Pacers' expense. That was the team that had lost 3 straight. How could you not be fired up? And please, if I teach you anything, don't be concerned about what they wear to the game, all right? Because it doesn't matter 1 ounce. I'm more concerned that you have a high level of concern about what some other dude's wearing. I don't. Next thing you're going to know, you're going to say, well, you know what? That guy over there's got Lee jeans on. He's not wearing Levi's. I just have never been somebody, well, I don't know what he's wearing. I will say this. In terms of uniforms, I think Houston's always better with the late 70s. Tampa's always better with the creamsicles. I guess I do, in terms of that, care about it, but I just think that that's from an enjoyment, turning back a clock standpoint. But I never really thought to ask anybody standing on the side of the road whether or not they're wearing Bugle Boy jeans. It doesn't matter. And believe me, they said that, Hammer said that to me in our little pregame meeting. When I saw that that's what they had on, I knew they were going to lose. It doesn't matter. You knew they were going to lose in the second half is when they were getting clowned on by Wembanyama, and not just him, but the entirety of that team. That's when I knew they were going to lose. I don't give a crap what they're wearing to the game. They're just going to change and put on a jockstrap like some of you nerds will. Maybe. John Easter writes this. So James never burned the crap out of his calf on an ATV or a dirt bike exhaust pipe. Let me tell you this, John Easter. That is such a rite of passage. Burning flesh from a hot exhaust pipe when you're riding a motorcycle in shorts. It's a rite of passage, brother.
Is that a formative memory right there?
Yeah, all the time. For some reason, they put that exhaust pipe at the worst spot possible, just right next to your leg. And I guess that's why you wear long pants, but we always wore shorts. Sometimes your leg would hit that thing, and there's some burning going on right there.
So that would be...
You would need a little bit of salve on it.
That would be bad for me now because I've got tattoos on my legs, so I wouldn't want to screw one of those up.
You have tattoos on your legs?
I do, yeah.
How many tattoos do you have over there?
I have no idea.
Lord have mercy. BT Do says, can you spin out in cow crap if you have a man bun? I'm not quite sure how that works right there. Thank you, guys. That's pretty funny. I missed my dirt bike, though. The dirt bike was awesome. There's zero way my kids would be allowed to do 90. Check that. I'm sorry. Would be allowed to do 50% of what I did. None. Zero. Tom Crean, Bob of the Hour. We got a double dip with Mike Wells and Don Fischer coming up. Big game for IU on Sunday against Maryland. Purdue and Michigan. That's the Big Ten type of discussion we'll get into with Tom Crean coming up here. Hey, Costanza, take it away at 239-1070. How are you, brother?
Hey, John. Hey, do you ever get down on your knees and thank God you have access to my dementia?
I do all the time, buddy. All the time. Whenever I see you on hold, I go, I'll be damned. I got to get him on here because I've got to get a change of pace here that nobody sees coming. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I always feel the need to, call and, maybe help the show along a little bit. But anyway, hey, you called it. You absolutely called it last week about the Pacers. This trip, we were on a roll. We were 14-4. Oh, and then all of a sudden, the wind is taken out of the sails, and I don't see that. I don't know if they'll win because
they gave up 140 yesterday. Can you believe 140 yesterday?
That's ridiculous. And I'm thinking you said we were like fifth in defense other day on the show, so I just don't understand. But I think that the San Antonio Spurs are a bad matchup for us. I don't think we match up well with them. But anyway, I want to go to the Colts real quick. You called everything right on that too as well. I like the new D coordinator from Cincinnati, Aromo, or I can't think of his name now. But I just hope that Chris Ballard opens up the checkbook and brings some people in, because if he doesn't, we're going to have more of the same.
Hope you're right, Costanza. Thank you for your call, buddy. I appreciate that very much. Costanza right there. Bring the thunder. All right, break for Tom Crean right here, you think? All right, we'll do that coming up on the other side, too. Big game for the Boilers tonight. Big game for IU on Sunday. Butler at home versus Chris Holtman and DePaul coming up tomorrow afternoon. And the Pacers at noon tomorrow, do they say to or do? The only saving grace to yesterday, let's just face it, the only people that were watching was a handful of NBA dignitaries and Gerard Depardieu. That was about it. I just hate it. I would have rather have done 3 hours of this show and me talking about spinning out in cow crap than that. That was awful. I don't know what you can do with the product that was on the floor yesterday. A little makeup action coming up tomorrow is what Pacer fans are hoping for. Tom Crean's going to join us coming up. Don Fischer, Mike Wells, 5 o'clock hour. Do not go anywhere. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Ride with JMV.
And the beat goes on. Yeah. And the beat goes on.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Billy Idol's coming to the Ruoff Home Mortgage Music Center. Joan Jett as well. Number 9 at 239-1070 can go on me. Billy Idol and Joan Jett's going to be a hell of a show. What's your favorite Billy Idol song out there? Rebel Yell, Eyes Without a Face, that's this one. How about Flesh for Fantasy? White Wedding, Hot in the City, Blue Highway. My least favorite, I think, because it slides a bit into the 90s category. I don't want to hear any Billy Idol 90s. Cradle of Love. Maybe very late 80s, early 90s. Ooh, how about Moni Moni? Was Moni Moni, was it banned at all of your school dances? Moni Moni was banned at ours. I think for a while, I think it was. Because that's when everybody started saying, hey, what? High school dances that banned Moni Moni. Telling you, that's going to be a heck of a show. Make sure you're a part of it. Get your tickets as well. Win those tickets right here. Speaking of which, too, we got more tickets to give away before the end of the show. But a shout-out to my friend Adam Ritz. I was going to go up and watch Yacht Rock Radio's Rock the Dock in Anderson at the Paramount last night. In fact, I was on my way up there. It was Ambrosia Player and John Ford Coley, and I got sidetracked because of the snow squalls and the roads. There was an accident, and I got held up behind it, so my apologies. But evidently that was a great show up in Anderson last night. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline, the former college coach from ESPN, knows a lot, certainly, about the Big Ten. Tom Crean joins us. Tom, good afternoon to you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you.
I had one hell of a day. My midday consisted of going down to the Hyper and playing 10 games of pickup basketball in Bloomington and then getting back up here and talking to you. That's a hell of a day right there. Today.
My goodness, absolutely.
Today.
Absolutely. How are the courts?
Great. That means old school. I mean, if there are things that don't change, like you'll still slide 9 feet sometimes because they don't run a broom across them very often, but that's just kind of the way that it is there. I just love it. Absolutely love it.
Oh, yeah, no, that's great. That's fantastic. So. We spent a lot of time in there during camps. And my first year, I would just go through there and watch pickup games because we were always on the lookout for somebody else to add to the team. And we're in the middle of the Big Ten season. And we actually got one.
Yeah. Who did you get out of the Hyper your first year?
Oh, man. He transferred from us. God, I can't think of his name. But he transferred from us and got a scholarship to Barry University in Florida. God, I can't think of his name.
Oh, was it the kid? Was it the kid from the region up northwest?
No. This was an early walk-on.
Okay.
I don't think he was. We've had some great walk-ons, but he ended up getting a scholarship, Division II scholarship, but nonetheless went from being a Hyper player to playing on our team, getting through a tryout, and all of a sudden there he is. So that's.
Tom, full disclosure here, I'm 55 years old, and I still have eligibility, so that's exactly what I'm trying to do as well. Seriously. I'm never going to stop. I got to get that scholarship. I don't care where it is. That's why I'm still trying. I think Tom's gone. I set that up really well, and Tom's phone just went right there. Yeah, 10 games, a little bit of noon ball action. I hadn't been down there forever for noon ball at the Hyper. Felt really good. Tom Crean rejoins from ESPN. I'd mentioned I'm 55 years old, and my hope is to get a scholarship look as well. I think I still have eligibility left. I'm good.
Well, and again, if you can shoot, you can move without the ball.
Yes.
If you can stay in good shape.
Yes.
And even when you're not playing, not get disgruntled and look for a better NIL deal and look up in the stands at your parents and get nuts over. You'll be fine. Every team needs some people that can play.
I think you just described like 95% of the players out there right now by some form or fashion. Yes. I'm none of that right there, Tom. None of it.
Good. The shot making's huge, though.
Yeah.
The shot making is huge.
I tell you, There's nothing I notice more as a parent of a girl that plays right now is the kids that look up in the stands at their parents at this point and any other point.
Well, it's been going on for a long time. And we actually had a guy at Indiana and an assistant general manager from the Cleveland Cavaliers told me, and I don't want to name him, but he said, tell so-and-so to quit looking at his dad in the stands all the time because if he makes the NBA, he won't be able to see his dad from where his seats will be. And that's a true story. I just don't want to name the player, but it's too common. It's just absolutely too common, and it's even more so. And it's always been like that. That's not portal or NIL, but what happens is kids have so many coaches, and now in the portal, this is where it's absolutely huge. I mean, you can go to school for 4 years and have 4 different coaches, and I mean 4 different programs, right? So you go through all these different periods of this coach, this team, that team. And what happens is you can kind of lose a semblance of how important your coach is because you've had so many. And there's some really good, upstanding, do-it-right parents that understand that the coach is making the decisions. You may not like them all the time. You may not agree with them all the time, but the coach is the coach. And there's also many, many instances where there's players that will never see the coach in a bigger light than what their parent is when it comes to basketball. They should never see him in a bigger light as a person, but they see him in a bigger light when it comes to what's best for their careers, what's best for basketball, how they should play, when they should shoot. And it starts at a really young age, and it takes a lot of maturity and going through different things as a player goes up the ladder to understand that your parents are there to support you. They can make you better in the sense of giving you opportunities, taking you places, giving you advice, reminding you of things. But unless they're coaching the team, they're not coaching the team. And it can get very, very tough.
It's Tom Crean of ESPN, the former coach on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. You mentioned this era. Would you feel comfortable, again, coaching the way that the college athletic landscape is built on NIL and transfer portal right now?
No, absolutely. I would. Absolutely, because I think it's and I've given that a lot of thought, but when you always dealt with cheating. It didn't matter if I was at Marquette, didn't matter if I was at Indiana or was at Georgia. You're dealing with that, and it's all part of it. And a lot of times people don't want to hear about it. They don't believe it. I had way too many conversations at Indiana where I was telling people things that were going on, and it was going in one ear and right out the other because they just couldn't fathom it. And it is true. But I think now, especially my last year at Georgia was the first year of NIL and the first year of the portal. And we were still coming off the COVID rules, which meant there was no in-person recruiting. It was all Zoom. It was video, things of that nature. My last team at Georgia only had 2 players that I ever recruited in person. But the NIL situation was we had $4,200 that year. We had 7 guys go do a 3-hour clinic locally for kids on a Sunday. They each made $600. We had 2 more guys get $1,000 from Crystal Hamburgers. So a grand total of $6,200. Now you'd be hard-pressed to find an SEC school, including Georgia, that's anything less than $4 million plus when it comes to NIL. So with that being said, and the way things have changed, I wouldn't mind it at all. I'd love that opportunity. And because again, when you've coached one and dones, when you've coached guys that were out after 2 years or 3 years, you have to speed the process up with them. And the bottom line is still, no matter how long you're going to have them, no matter how long you think you're going to have them, you have 100% responsibility to develop them the best that you can. Whether it's going to be for you or whether they're going to go somebody else. Because even when you have young players that become pros, you're not even going to come close to seeing their potential when they're with you. But you have to do the very best job you can do, not only to win for where you're at, but to put them in a position to be successful down the road. And I always took that real serious. And I could definitely see myself coaching again, no doubt.
Have you been close?
Not really. I met with DePaul last year, and they were serious because they came out to Florida, and it was a great conversation and all that type of stuff. And they had just invested a lot of money into their NIL. And when I got done with the meeting, I liked it. But when I walked out of there, I felt like they were going to get somebody that was coaching right now that could potentially bring players with them right off the bat. And they ended up hiring Chris, which was a good move. I mean, so I don't have any problem with that. But I haven't been that serious about some other overtures. And I think because what I'm doing, I like what I'm doing. And I feel like I'm learning every day. And I feel like the game planning that you do in games, you're constantly doing that for television, because you're constantly looking at all these teams on how you would play them, what they're missing, what they have to do to get better. You have to not only talk about what they're doing, but you got to be able to forecast what they're going to do. And so I enjoy that. But I mean, missing the floor and missing the daily helping players solve their problems and helping them get better, I miss that. But I've kept an open mind on everything, and I think I'll continue to.
Your former team gets Maryland coming up on Sunday. Of course, talking about IU in this case, you're very familiar with everything, even in the changing of the landscape. What has been the overwhelming, overriding issue with this team not being near, I think, what a lot of people felt it should and it would be to this point in the season, Tom?
Well, I think the easy way to look at it is the bigs and Ballo. And I think when you sign a guy like that and you know that it's very important for him based on his past experiences that he goes where he's going to get the ball, and when you watch him and you see how much energy he plays with when he is scoring, when he is working, I think that the conditioning part was a concern to me early on. There's no doubt about that. But he's got to get the ball, because that's when he's at his best. He is what he is. He's not a jump shooter. He's not going to come down and shut down a guard in a switch game, but he can score at the basket. He can rebound the ball. He's a presence. And I think that's a big thing. And I think it's really easy to look at. I was never a big, like, the big lineup is bad. I was more like when they had the wrong bigger guys together. Like, there were times they would be really big with only one guard, and I didn't think that was conducive as much to their offense and to their movement and things like that. But the bigger picture to me is the guards have just not been close to consistent, and that has to change. And when Indiana plays well, their guards play better. I've said this before. I think Luke Goody is the whole energizing force of that team. I think when he plays well, I think it inspires everybody else. I think when he's making shots, playing tough the way that he's capable of, I think you can tell the team really likes him. I think Anthony Leal has got some of that off the bench. Even though he's not that kind of offensive player, he does bring and provide a spark of energy. I think the bigger issue for them is the defense, and I think that was the case the other night against Northwestern. Watching that game, they were very good, solid, playing well. Northwestern hit a lull. They had a lot to do with that in the first half. Indiana was scoring, and in the second half, the level of concentration and focus wasn't even close to what it was in the first half. Weak side defense, late closeouts, standing straight up, things like that. And what happens is when you're not scoring points, you can't be discouraged, right? Like, you can be disappointed that you didn't score, but you got to come right back down and you got to lock in defensively. And the greatest problem in all of basketball, whether it's the pros, whether it's high school, whether it's college, doesn't matter if it's Indiana or whoever it is, how do you keep your concentration and focus on the defensive end, especially weak side, when the ball's not going in the basket? And you have to be mature enough. You have to rely on your fundamentals. And there's times that the defensive fundamentals of Indiana, with the weak side, with standing straight up, with being late on the closeouts, the stunts, they're not where they need to be. And I'm not in practice to see how it's taught or, what's tolerated, what's not tolerated. So I can't speak to that. But I can say when you watch them play, some of those problems look the same. And what ends up happening is not only are they giving up shots, they're not close to being the defensive rebounding or really the offensive rebounding team that they need to be when they don't win. And I think that's the part of it that's huge. And I think that game Sunday with Maryland, if the Maryland team that played last night is there, that's going to be a really hard game.
Yeah.
Because the freshman Derek Queen is climbing into the lottery, and Julian Reese played well. But if it's the Maryland team that showed up at Washington that was playing like they were in work boots, or Timberland boots, and moving so slow then Indiana be fine. But it's kind of the story of the league, really outside of Michigan State. There's a high level of inconsistency in a lot of these teams, so you're never quite sure what you're going to get each day.
Tom Crean joins us. In my remedial viewpoint of basketball, and I want to get to what you brought up about
you played 10 games at the Hyper today. That's
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm a genius. I always thought to stay engaged, if you're having a bad game offensively, stay engaged, you just communicate. Like if there is communication that kind of makes 5 as 1 out there. And listen, I don't know if there was or there wasn't, but their reaction on three-point shooters, and in this case on Wednesday night at Northwestern, three-point makers, it seemed like that was about as disconnected a defensive bunch as we've seen in that second half against Northwestern Wednesday.
Well, I put that on the guards. I think that's where the leadership of the guards come in. And 2 of the guards are still young. Miles Rice is a little bit older because he had gone through the cancer, but he's a sophomore eligibility-wise. Kanan Carlisle's a sophomore. Trey Galloway's obviously been there a long time. I think those you're not wrong, right? And I think what happens is you go on your own island, and it's not just an Indiana issue. I mean, it's a universal issue with a lot of teams when things aren't going well. But there is nothing more important right now with the way life is when you're coaching a basketball team or playing on a basketball team than to have as much attention paid to how you communicate with each other as possible. Because what happens is awareness goes, and you're late. And what I said earlier, like what you're talking about with being on the shooters and things like that, there were too many times players are standing straight up. They're straight up, so they're moving on the catch of the pass versus the movement of the flight of the ball. And that may seem very trivial, but it's absolutely paramount to how people play. And again, it happens all over the place. But I would go back again. The guy that I think is probably their most potential NBA player, if you just looked at talent on that team, would be McKenzie. And there are times that he looks really good. There are times that he gets absolutely disengaged, whether he's not getting the ball, whether he's standing straight up. And that's where the leadership of the team and the players have got to be really good in a situation like that. And the one thing the offense doesn't seem to have a lot of, and again, I say it, but I'm not at practice to see it, or not see it, but there's not a lot of random play when things break down. There's a lot of try to get a play, try to go make a shot, try to get a pull-up, make a pass, but there's not a lot of movement. Mabako should be way better when it comes to getting the ball in scoring positions. When he misses, he's fading to his left. I mean, you can see it almost every time. When he catches the ball, he steps out to his left, and it's not bad. It's not terrible. It's all correctable. But he could be a more consistent player. I know he had a late drive in the first half in that game. He went straight to the basket. It was a really good play. He's got to do more of that. And I would say that on whatever team he's on, because there's a guy that can bring more electricity to that team. And I don't know him. I wasn't a part of any recruiting of him, so I don't know anything about him as a person. But when I watch him play, you see there's way more than what he is giving or what they're getting out of him in the course of every game. And I put that on the leadership of the guards. And, it's easy to put it on the coaches. I put it on the leadership of the guards. And when we were successful at Indiana, we had great guards. Mike Woodson would probably say the same thing when he was successful at Indiana. If your guard play is not just scoring, not just good defensively, but if there's not real leadership, demands, reminders, energizing, it's really hard. And there's too many times you look out there, and that is a quiet backcourt.
Yeah. So Tom Crean is with us. Before I let you go, you brought up IU's thinks they play better without the two bigs on the floor at once, and we've seen, I think, both sides of that. Now, we have seen Michigan, and I talked to Dusty May a couple of days ago. He feels comfortable in playing with his two bigs. I think the difference is that Wolf got versatility that the two bigs down in Bloomington do not have. Your thoughts on this Michigan Boilermaker matchup with the two bigs coming at what normally is, or in the past has been, a big dominated set for Matt Painter, which isn't that way any longer?
Well, this is where the emergence of Caleb First is going to be huge because that game, Danny Wolf is an outlier. I mean, he is a pure outlier. And Vlad Golden, who's been to the national championship game, who had a pretty good year, I would say, last year at Florida Atlantic, is now having a great year. And he's improved athletically. Whoever Dusty hired as a strength coach that he brought in, I think he brought him in from Furman, he told me. And he worked for a guy named Preston Green, who is as good a strength coach as there is to me in college basketball. And you can just see a difference in the athleticism of those players. You can see a difference in their strength. Wolf is definitely different because we'd see so many games in the studio of him last year. And he's not a great athlete, but he's a much better athlete because he's so aware and he can play with either hand. You could put Danny Wolf at point and not skip a beat. That's what makes their team unique. So Purdue tonight, this is not going to be, we're just going to be physical with them. You've got to be quicker than them. You've got to have not only one plan, but probably a good 2 to 3 plans on how you're going to guard that 4-5 pick and roll. And you have to play Danny Wolf as a passer. Now, if Purdue can do that, because I think Purdue, there's no question they weren't even close the other night against Ohio State. I'm sure Matt would agree with that. It's almost lethargic. And because Ohio State, I don't think, is a better team than them, but they played harder and with more energy the other night. And Purdue is better than that. So maybe it was the trip out west. Whatever it was, Purdue is better than that. I think they'll get a really, really good version of Purdue tonight. But they have to defend the big action. And then I think the thing that's really emerged from Michigan is Trey Donaldson at Auburn last year doesn't even look close to the way he does now. I mean, a couple games ago, I think he had 6 threes. 5 of them were from NBA range. He wasn't doing any of that at Auburn. So now you have Roddy Gale Jr., who's a bona fide player. You have Trey Donaldson, who's really, really improved. It's going to put a lot of pressure not only on Braden Smith, but Fletcher Lawyer tonight. I think it's going to be a great game, but I think this is going to be a game Purdue wins, but they're not going to win by just being more physical. They're going to have to be quick. They're going to have to take things away. They're going to have to be incredibly active because Michigan is putting 4 passers on that floor at almost all times, and that's what's made Vlad Golden so much better.
Yes. Tom Crean on ESPN, the former coach and lover of hyper stories. I appreciate that. Next time I have you on, we'll share some more, okay?
Absolutely. I haven't been there in a long time.
Well, but, you got to get back, man. It is It's as legendary as it always has been. Love it. So, all right, Tom, I appreciate it. Enjoy the games this weekend. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you. Good luck.
Tom Crean on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'm assuming about getting my scholarship. Good luck. 55, a little eligibility left. If I'm Matt Graves, I'm making a call over here right now, especially the way we're looking. Quick one, we'll come back. Don Fischer, Mike Wells, 5 o'clock hour. Idle tickets as well. Sit tight. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
All right, Hamilton.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, welcome back. Tom Crean, podcast 1075, thefan.com. Busy 5 o'clock hour. Billy Idol tickets to give away for the show with Joe and Jet coming up. But do not forget, voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, Mike Wells, still to come. Busy Friday. Next week, road shows. I shall explain. But I went incredibly over with Tom Crean. And by the way, get back to that conversation if you missed any of it regarding IU especially. It's 1075thefan.com. Quick break. Voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer. Next, AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
With JMV.
I am the cream, yeah. The cream of the crop. And there is no one that does it better.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Mike Wells, bottom of the hour, ESPN Radio. Tom Crean, the former IU coach, ESPN broadcaster a little bit earlier. Bob Lovell, a little bit earlier. Busy week next week, couple of times out. Got a Tom's Watch Bar and Workingman's Friend coming up next week, everybody. It's a tavern tour stop coming at you. I shall explain. Billy Idol tickets to give away as well, but on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he is in on this Friday. Got a Sunday get-together at noon in Bloomington with Maryland and IU. It's the voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer, joining us now. Hello, Don.
John, how are you?
Where are we today, Don?
Where am I? I'm at in my office in my home today.
Office and home. Are we going to our table this evening, Don?
I've not thought about it. Just really, to be quite honest, I've been. My wife is in France.
Oh yeah,
with the Indiana Pacers, and
well, hell, we'll
obviously
just go to the strip club then. I'll load you up. Let's go.
Now that you publicly announced that, I don't think I'll accept.
Oh, man. All right, little freedom. And not that, listen, we love Susie Fisher, don't get me wrong, but a little bit of freedom for the voice of the Hoosiers this weekend. Well, yeah.
Well, I've been pounding my son for dinner twice this week already. So I don't like cooking myself. I don't mind it, but there's only 2 or 3 things I can cook: hamburgers and eggs and sausage. That's about it.
So you've been having breakfast for dinner this week, then, haven't you? Good for you.
I actually haven't had to do that because, like I said, I've been over to my son's a couple of times, and we were on the road for a couple of ball games, or for a ball game, I should say. So. At any rate,
no fast food, no restaurant, no anything like that, huh?
I haven't done any fast food. No.
Good for you. Well, I mean, you were in Evanston, I guess, midweek too, so that took up a little bit of it, I would guess. So
they had a Ruth's Chris up there in the hotel we stayed in. We did partake of that.
Well, had to get something out of that trip, I guess, because the second half didn't get the job done, did it?
No, it did not. John, I know people are upset about Indiana losing that ball game, and I think we all are a little dismayed about it. But at the same time, that was really a good basketball game, and it went back and forth, and there were run after run by both teams. The sad part of it is that Indiana had an opportunity to finish it off, and they didn't get it done, and that's the dismaying part.
Yeah, it is. And I was just talking to Tom Crean. We were discussing recognition, and there were so many moments to where if you have, and listen, I call it simple, and I'm sure it's well beyond simple, but if you have recognition, on shooters, who's shooting, who's hitting it right at that point in time, and you just didn't have that second half. It was just really odd, their lack of recognizing such things, and Northwestern took advantage of it. I will also say, if you would have told me, Don, let's go back to whenever, that Northwestern would win 5 straight against IU, I thought we're in the bizarro stinking universe is where we are.
Exactly. I mean, that had never happened before. Here's the oddity of this thing, and we've got a Wisconsin team coming up here in a couple of weeks that has just buried Indiana at their place especially, but they have dominated the series since Bob Knight was let go at Indiana. I mean, that's 25 years ago. And I went back to look at how that series had progressed from 1910 on, which is when it started. And like Wisconsin dominated the early part of it, then Indiana dominated from 1950 till 2000 from that point forward, and then and Wisconsin's dominated it ever since then. So it's kind of interesting to go back and look at these things and see where, which team was able to do what at certain periods of time. And for 50 years, Indiana just absolutely annihilated Wisconsin. Yeah. 70 some wins at that time, in that period of time. And now Wisconsin's just done the same thing to Indiana. They've won like 35 times over the last 25 years. There was
an overtime thriller years ago. I don't quite remember which one it was. I think it was a Greg Graham free throw making game, something like that anyway. And I remember those were the times when Wisconsin and Northwestern got close. It was like a red flag. Well, wait a minute. They're close.
You were right about that. There's no doubt. I mean, every time Wisconsin got in a ball game where we thought there might be a chance, in fact, 1987, it was a triple overtime that Indiana won. Steve Alford was a part of that team, and I had laryngitis the entire ball game and could barely talk at the end. In fact, Max Skirvin took over the final 6 or 7 minutes of the post game because I ran out of talking ability.
I believe it may have been shocked because was that Rick Olson playing in the tiniest shorts any humans ever worn in college basketball?
I can't remember.
I think I'm still scarred from that.
You may be. If you go back and look at some of the old film, you'd be a lot of scarred. You'd be scarred a lot.
Yes, I would be scarred a lot. With this group, I think what people see, you see guys that are talented, and you see like dudes that aren't nearly enough on the same page, and some lack of understanding. And I thought we saw that again in the second half. Was there moments when you're thinking, you know what, Don, this is it right here? There are moments when you can say this is it, but those moments unfortunately are fleeting, and they lead you down the path to a lot of what we witnessed in the second half that ultimately cost them the game.
Yeah, and if you looked at what Indiana did defensively in the first half, they really did a heck of a job. They held them to 25 points in the first half of that ball game defensively. And then the second half, it's just inexplicable how things changed so dramatically. And Leach hadn't hit any kind of points at all, maybe a field goal in the first half or something like that, their point guard. He knocks down 3 straight threes. And of course, Ty Berry, he was phenomenal the entire ball game for Northwestern when he was in there. He had 7 in the contest, and they had other people that knocked him in. And then, of course, Barnheiser he's one of those kids that just plays his guts out the entire ball game and just gives them leadership that I just don't see the same kind of leadership in this ball club. And I know that Luke Goody has really tried to help these guys understand how important that is, and I think he's probably the best leader among that group, along with maybe Leal and Galloway. Galloway's not the vocal guy, but at any rate, at the times that Indiana needs it the most, it just doesn't seem to be there.
I think that with Brooks, and you're absolutely right about that, I think that he leads by example, and then otherwise, I kind of wonder at times, Don, even if you had a true leader that would stuff the stat sheet, do it on the floor and then off, how many guys would actually listen and buy in, or how many would still, be apprehended. It's just it just kind of different. I think you also have to, I guess what I'm saying is you have to have the right dudes along with that leader, the right dudes that are willing to be led. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep, I do know what you mean. And it just doesn't seem like, at least at this point, this team still hasn't figured that out. And there's a lack of consistency with almost every one of these guys from a playing standpoint, too. I mean, you just don't see the same game in, game out, toughness, energy, effort, those kinds of things. And I'm not saying that some guys don't play hard. I'm just simply saying there's no consistency to it. And you'll have one guy get hot. I mean, Mbako, for 4 straight games, 0 for 15 from the three-point line, 4 of 29 from the field in those 4 ball games, and then he comes out and scores 20 against Northwestern. I mean, that kind of inconsistency it destroys your mentality as much as it does anything.
Yeah, I mean, you can't find answers. You can't find answers because the moment that Mbako turns out to be the answer, and then he no longer is by the time others join, it's just they're just a very disjointed group, and it seems to be what reps them more. I think than anything else is just the whole how disjointed they are together.
I mean, if you wanted to look at this team's performances this year, the only guy I could say that you say, hey, this guy, every ball game, he's the same, and that's Ballo. I mean, I think Umar's played well throughout the season. I mean, there have been a couple of golf ball games where he didn't perform, but then that's the scenario for every team and every player. But the consistency we're talking about is in those little things: the energy, the effort, the smarts, executing your game, the game plan from your perspective as in your role. Those kinds of the things I think we're really talking about here. And right now it's killing this ball club because they were capable of winning that game against Northwestern just like they did the game before against Ohio State. Now, and then you had the 2 25-point loss games that led up to that. So what you don't know what to expect anytime this team walks out on the floor. You just don't.
So I'll ask you this. What's your expectation at noon tip time on Sunday against Maryland? Very important, I think, and very interesting to see, what this team looks like against the Terps on Sunday.
Well, I agree, and the bounce back needs to be a big one for this ball club because Maryland, who has really struggled on the road this year, in fact, they've only lost, I think, one game this year that wasn't played. Well, they won every ball game leading up to Big Ten play, but on the Big Ten, they had not won a road game until they just kicked the snot out of Illinois on Thursday night, last night. So they just won 91-70, for heaven's sakes, over an Illinois team that we all know is really a good ball club. So this Maryland ball club is going to come in with fire in their eyes because they think that they can get into this Big Ten championship lead, or not the lead, but at least the competitiveness to challenge for a Big Ten title because they've got some tools. And the two big, both the Reese kid and Derek Queen, they make things tough, and they can also shoot the three. And I'm not talking about the bigs now. I'm talking about the rest of their team. So this is going to be a real challenge for this Indiana ball club, and they're going to have to come out with fire in their eyes if they're going to have a chance to win it.
Yeah. It's Don Fischer, voice of the Hoosiers on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Again, across the hall, 11 a.m. It's when the network coverage begins with John and Eric and Don, and then they'll get to the game. Tip time at noon. I was actually down there today. I played about 10 games at the Hyper from 11:30 until, I don't know. I came up here.
What, you feeling like you're back in college again, big boy?
Back in college. So I had Tom Crean on. He said, my first year here, I walked through the Hyper constantly looking for guys, and I actually brought one out of there. And I said, Tom, that's at 55 years of age, that's exactly what I'm looking for right now. I have eligibility left.
I understand. Did he take you up on it?
Yeah. He said, well, can you shoot? I said, hell yeah. He goes, can you move? I said, I've lost 65 pounds. I move a hell of a lot better right now. I said, I'm not, the broom handle has more athleticism than I do. That's problematic. But everything else, I think I got a little bit of recognition out there. Certainly got a great deal of want to. So why not? Why not?
You can be a spot-up three-point shooter, man.
Yeah, I'll just stand out there, talk on defense and act like I'm doing something. You can act on defense. You can act like you're doing something when in reality you're doing nothing. I'm really good at that.
Trust me, I know all about that too.
Yeah, well, I know. And it's really bad when there's a little bit of that seeps in to the product that really does matter. So
yes, it does.
Yeah,
you're correct, sir. We'd be two of those guys out there that they were talking about why these guys aren't consistently good.
No, there's no doubt. Yeah. Like, I'll go through stretches when I go, I feel really good and I look really good, and then longer stretches where I look awful and I just get depressed and want to leave. So, yeah. That's when the cussing really starts inside. Is it the Wildermuth or Wildermuth? I've always pronounced that wrong. What do we know?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
I think I've always pronounced it wrong. I will say this: the Dick Enberg room that's right there, why as you walk in, I always thought was pretty cool. So
yeah,
I really did.
Yeah.
So big fan of that campus. So Mike, I don't know if you know Mike Ross or not. Mike Ross from down in Bloomington used to be the owner of Opie Taylor's. Is a high school friend of mine, and he opened it up, and I ran down there and got about 10 in and came back up here and talked to you and Tom Crean and Mike Wells and Bob Lovell. That's a hell of a day right there.
Well, Mike Ross owned all these restaurants here a few years ago, and now he doesn't have any of them anymore, I don't think.
I don't know what he's doing. I think he's just playing basketball with me at noon and going back home now.
Well, I hope we're talking about the same Mike Ross.
We might not be. There may be more than one. Mike Ross, I think 10 years ago, Mike owned Opie Taylor's. I think about 10 years ago or so. I think he was the last owner. And Opie Taylor's, people in and around Bloomington that attended IU, when Opie Taylor's was open, that was a staple around Bloomington right there. So.
Well, Mike owned the Southern Stone, the Feast. Let me think here. Where we did the broadcast from last year.
Maybe he did.
Yeah, he owned all those places, and he was trying to rebuild the Colorado Steakhouse. The old Colorado Steakhouse.
You know what? That is, we are talking about the same one. He was trying to do that. Why hasn't he done that? I should have gone on his ass for that. I got to make it the Gold Rush again. What the hell are we doing?
All I can tell you is he sold them all because he got fed up with dealing with the Bloomington, all the environmental stuff and all the regulations and rules they have down there for everything.
Well, let's talk about Bloomington and Monroe County. We have a good friend of ours that's a fan of Ron Colley. Together, used to play IU football, certainly, that knows all about those rules and regulations.
I know he does.
Yes.
Let's not bring that up.
We won't bring that up, but I've always wondered why it has to be that big of a pain in the ass, Don. Full disclosure.
I don't understand either, but it's not my town.
It is not mine either. Don Fischer, voice of the Hoosiers, with us. And I also should look ahead. You got night number 1 of IU Purdue next week, a week from tonight at 8 o'clock in West Love. You love that Friday night 8 o'clock start, don't you?
Oh, yeah. We're just looking so much forward to it.
Hey, you get a chance to watch when you have a little bit of time off, like you're going to have. And I know you got Sunday, and then you got Mike Woodson's show on Monday. You're going to have a little bit of time off. Do you get to soak up any Big Ten, for example, basketball at all?
I do watch a lot of it. I mean, I watch more than I shouldn't say tons, but I try to watch. I don't watch every ball game all the way through anymore. I watch a lot of ball games. I'll watch 20, 30 minutes of it, and then I'll get off of it and look at something else and that kind of thing. But I don't watch as much as I used to, but because I've seen all these guys. Well, not all of them, because there's so many new guys in the league. You can't see them all at one time. But no, I don't watch as much as I used to.
Oh man. Well, and Susie's in Paris. Is she having a good time? Obviously, the worst time so far was watching that piece of crap game yesterday.
Exactly. The only time it wasn't a great time for the entire group was yesterday when they played. So.
Lord have mercy, Don. Good Lord.
She's having a good time though. She's got a friend with her, and they're having a ball.
Oh well, good for them. Don Fischer, voice of the Hoosiers. I did not know, or maybe I did know, and I'd forgotten. Mike was trying to spark up the old Gold Rush Colorado Steakhouse again. Yeah, that was one of the best parts. The greatest time when I worked at B97 for this Art and Gotti show, the late Art and Gotti back in the day, we had trade with Colorado Steakhouse, and I would take my intramural basketball team over there and ate on that trade before we played every week.
Yeah.
That was the best part about it. Thank you, Art, for that.
Back in the day, the Colorado Steakhouse had one of the really good salad bars, period.
It had one of the great. It goes back to the Gold Rush, too. They have that back bar that you had walk out into the back parking lot. They had a great happy hour there, too. Fantastic. So. Yes.
Well, I didn't partake of many happy hours.
Oh, you did, too. You just don't want to talk about it. I think I embarrassed you at the start about the strip club comment, so my bad.
Well, no, we're not going to strip club tonight, John. So just so you know.
Hey, I do have, no doubt. If we are not. I'm going home, and Don's going to be at home eating eggs and sausage tonight. I do have people asking about, and this is kind of, is it not the price of success? And everybody has been looking for success with IU football ticket prices on the rise for spots. I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah, I haven't seen exactly what they are yet, but I'm not looking forward to it.
It is called donations, I believe, is how they awarded it yesterday. Donations.
Is that right?
Yeah. Donation plus cost of the ticket, I think, for many people to keep those tickets, I think, or else maybe you move to seats that aren't as good as previous seasons. I believe that's how I understand it. But that's kind of the price that you pay for success, I guess, right?
Well, it absolutely is. And here's the other aspect of that. They go to revenue sharing. And when that happens, things change a lot. I mean, they've already had several people that were laid off or actually let go and positions abolished because of this revenue sharing scenario. I don't know all that much about it. All I know is that there's a cap and you got so much money you can spend, and then that's it. And therefore, if you want to be competitive, you're going to have to reach the top of the cap, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to have to reach the top of the cap to get the talent level, because now it's all free agency for college athletes, and that's the thing that bothers me most about college athletics right now. There's no more about the pride or the wearing of the uniform or any of that kind of thing. It's all about the money.
It's over.
And I think it really is.
You know,
really is.
You can see Kurt Cignetti and his philosophy, like it was last year. You know, he brought in a lot of his own guys, but he also brought in that quarterback and those to coach up that quarterback. That's kind of that centerpiece, that starter, and you know that's a similar philosophy. At least that's what I've gathered so far.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think he likes it any better than anybody else, but he said, if you're not going to change, then you're not going to survive.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to survive. So he's doing it.
Well, and that's why you see some say, the hell with this, I'm out of here. And others will thrive in it because they embrace it. So
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly right.
Hey, well, enjoy breakfast for dinner later on tonight, okay, buddy?
Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
At some Friday down the road, remember, I've got, thanks to our good friend Damon, thanks to our good friend Jim McCann in Southern California, I've got a gift card for cocktails for us at our table. So be ready.
Well, you know what? I'll be ready for it. I really will be.
I'll sit there and watch you eat, and I'll drink.
Sounds good.
Thanks, buddy.
See you, John.
Don Fischer, voice of the Hoosiers on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right there. Mike Wells on the other side of ESPN Radio. Billy Idol tickets also on the way. Tom Crean, Bob Lovell, Don Fischer podcast. 1075thefan.com, the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live at 93.5 and 1075 The Fan.
Ride with JMV.
Excuse me, Robo. Any special message for all the kids watching at home?
Stay out of trouble. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
James over there. I'm John. Thank you for joining us. Don Fischer, voice of the Hoosiers. Tom Crean, former Hoosier basketball coach. Bob Lovell a little bit earlier. Pacers Part 2 in Paris tomorrow. 11:30 coverage begins, noon the start. Mike Wells, Slow Jam re-entry on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline is right now. Mike.
You are here with me. Baby, let's do it right. Turn it up, turn it up. Let me know just what I need. I want to hold you all so tight. Baby, just touch me anywhere. Cutie, you turn me on. Oh, here we go. I like to run my fingers through your hair. So come on and stay with me all night. I want to rock with you, baby. Oh, yeah. All night long.
That's Mike Wells, the Slow Jam re-entries. Bobby Brown, well done, Mike.
Hey, little Bobby B, man.
Classic. That's classic. Now, was the Bobby Brown Don't Be Cruel album better than any albums New Edition put out?
That's the best. Anybody who saw New Edition or New Edition together, that Bobby Brown Don't Be Cruel. I mean, cause think about that. You got Rock With You, you got Roni, you got Every Little Step.
Yep.
Don't Be Cruel.
Yep.
My Prerogative. I just ran off 5 top 3 hits in itself right there from Bobby Brown off of that album. We say album, not even CD. We'll say album.
And he didn't get close to that rest of the way, did he? I mean, I know he did Ghostbusters 2, and he did Humping Around and that stuff in the 90s, but he did not even touch that level of success after.
Listen, he got close to other stuff that kind of derailed his.
Yes, he did, didn't he?
His music career, unfortunately. And I got to say this too, man.
Yeah.
And I say this because I had my playlist on and in the car one day with your girl Layla.
Yeah.
And it just random. I thought I got rid of all the songs. And I wish R. Kelly would not have done what he did because he would have been in our rotation of songs, man. But he had to do some stupid ass things.
Yeah, he's out of the rotation as well. He should be forever. Yes.
Yes, he is permanently banned. But listen, there's plenty of others 80s and 90s R&B folks that we can rock with you as Bobby Brown likes to say.
I love the Bobby Brown, the Ralph Tresvant, the New Edition stuff, Belle Biv DeVoe. When Can I See You Smile Again? That Slow Jam stuff is awesome, but still, I think you'd almost have to put everybody else together, right? Solo, Belle Biv DeVoe, New Edition to equal Bobby Brown's Don't Be Cruel.
Yeah. Bobby B was the most talented of that group. Don't get me wrong. Johnny Gill has some vocals. We know what the BBD's Poison CD was all about. But from a talent standpoint, nobody can touch Bobby Brown from a talent standpoint, top to bottom. Songs, dancing ability, it was all about Bobby B carried New Edition.
So, who would the Pacers be if Victor Wembanyama was Bobby Brown in this scenario? Who would the Pacers be right now?
Ooh, man. So,
like
the New
Surface?
Edition boys?
Would they be? I don't even know if they'd be Surface, and they sure as hell wouldn't be Levert. Who would they be right now?
Listen, if they were Surface, they were showering the San Antonio Spurs with lots of love yesterday.
Well, they were, weren't they?
I mean, hey, how would you feel, man? You go across the pond.
Yeah.
You go across the pond. You're going to Paris, thinking you're gonna live a great life. You're gonna have a great time over there, and then you get smacked by 30 points in Wembanyama's home country.
I've hated the entire thing. They were 14-4 over their last 18, and I thought you take this trip at the worst time possible. I was absolutely concerned about that. And then they get over there and looked like they did in 2017, if you remember, when they got depanced by Denver in London. Denver had lost 5 straight going in. The Pacers had won 5 straight going in back in 2017. And they, much like San Antonio yesterday, put up $140 on a team in the last 8 team, Mike, that was a top 5 defense. So they absolutely go all the way to Paris to get embarrassed.
Yeah, and mind you, I was just following along on the game, and I'm like, holy! When I saw the final, I was like, 140 points. That is just that's hideous. And hopefully, the second game will be a lot better than the first one. Hey, so how did this? I can't. I'm driving right now.
Sure.
How did that 2017 season end up when they? Did they get back on track after the Nuggets?
Man, now you're gonna. I don't think. I think was that the season they finished 2 games above 500. So I would say, not quite what anybody's looking for with this group this year.
Yeah. So, but okay. It's Friday. I'm in a good mood.
I know. I just put you in a bad mood. And hey, Mike. By the way, too, you're right. I know where you're going. Like I'm worried about once they get back and how they're going to look Wednesday night when they get like beef stew hiding underneath the porch at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, waiting to whip the ass of the Pacers from what took place last time the 2 teams met. So you got a motivated Piston team that Wednesday, and you're going to have a tired-ass team, even with the days off, next Wednesday night at the Fieldhouse. I hate that combination.
Yeah, because, you're right. What happened up there in with Little Caesars Arena now, the big, I'm gonna pull a positive, Jay.
Okay.
Like you said, they're 14-5 now in their past 19, 14-4 before they decided to go across the Atlantic Ocean out there. What have you been most impressed with by winning 14 out of the last 18 prior to yesterday?
Easily, it was a top 5 defense. And even for that sample period of 18 games, I would have called you a jokester if you would have ever thought anybody would have ever told me that they could play, even for that amount of time, that level of defense. And they did, and then it all fell apart yesterday. But it's been easily what they have done on the defensive end, because I just didn't think they were capable of that for any stretch, much less a stretch of 18 games.
Yeah. And what's amazing is I'm sure those who are not familiar, in Rick Carlisle's first go-around, he was all about the defense. I remember Jamal Tinsley used to always get mad because of the way Carlisle coached in his first go-around, and completely flipped the script and been more. He had to change his offensive philosophy, and now all of a sudden they were, like you said, getting back to looking like a legit defensive team again. You gotta if you're a Pacers fan, you gotta hope this was just a one-off, even if they don't win tomorrow.
Yeah.
They just can't go out and get smacked around for the second straight game, because that is a long-ass flight back from Paris if that were the case.
I cannot get over how San Antonio, and I guess I would be too. I guess you would be too. They were giggling and laughing and joking around in the second half as they were dunking and laying it up and knocking down threes at the expense of the Pacers. I could not get over that.
And if I'm Carlisle, when we had our film session, while I'm talking about our defensive breakdowns, I'm showing clips like that just in case, as a friendly reminder, hey, don't forget, this is what the hell they were out there mocking you out here and making it into a clown fest as they thoroughly and royally embarrassed you.
Heavy-duty clown fest. What do you think about the Colts, their new defensive coordinator? And I do want to get your thoughts on the 2 championship games, NFC, AFC, this weekend. What are we feeling over there, Mike?
Man, I would love for Josh Allen and the Bills to pull it off. But they already beat Kansas City once, gave Kansas City that loss. And it's just so damn hard to knock off Patrick Mahomes. You think every time you think this is the time they're gonna lose, they find a way to win. And while obviously Casey with a great record, the number of close games they pulled off is just I can't go against Patrick Mahomes, but it would be great if Josh Allen and the Bills pull up. But I'm going KC here, and I just think Jaden Daniels has been a hell of a story. You're Chicago Bears. You're kicking yourself.
Anybody but Nick Sirianni, by the way, too. I just want to see his ass lose.
I love what Saquon Barkley's done after the New York Giants have said they don't want him. And I like Jalen Hurts, but you're right. I got to tell you, Sirianni's ego is off the charts. He acts like a buffoon at times, quite honestly. So I'm gonna go with the Commanders in this one. I think the Jaden Daniels story continues on and rides on. Commanders fall to upset and get to the Super Bowl.
So Mike Wells of ESPN Radio's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. See if you view me as having a hypocritical look at guys, coaches in this case, that we would call a-holes. I call Nick Sirianni an a-hole. I don't like him. I want to see him lose. And there is no doubt Danny Hurley is a tremendous a-hole, yet I am entertained by him. Why is that? Is that hypocritical, or is that just different personalities, and for whatever reason I'm entertained? Why?
I got it. Well, Hurley does it to the officials. Sirianni does it to the fans. He mocks the fans, but I'm going to call you hypocritical.
Okay.
And I say that with so much love behind me in saying that. But yeah, it is hypocritical because people actually, Hurley is getting labeled as being an AO for his arrogance and pompous ass attitude along the sidelines. And that's what Sirianni is along the sidelines too. So they are the same people in a different way. They're very confident in their coaching ability, and they don't simply just coach. They let you know that they think they are the baddest MFer in their position.
Yeah, I guess I am. Because I am entertained by Hurley. And I shouldn't be, but I am. And I can't stand Sirianni.
It is completely comical. If you had to cover him, I think it would wear old quickly all the time. And if you're an opposing coach, it would definitely wear old because he's getting away with being able to do all that stuff. And obviously it started in Maui when the Huskies went winless over there on the island.
Mike, were you down in Bloomington today?
I was driving back. It's one Friday a month you have faculty meetings, and so I was down there. I'm heading back now. I gotta tell you, boy, the buzz in Bloomington and Mike Woodson.
Yeah,
it is. Nobody is trying to mess with Mike Woodson down there in Bloomington. It is. I think they're ready. They're ready to run old Woody out of town.
Well, I played at the Hyper. I was telling Don Fischer. Actually, Tom told everybody this. I went down to the Hyper and played this morning from like 11:30 until 1 with a group.
What?
And yeah, so they invited me down. I said, hell yeah, I'm gonna get down there, run about 10 games or so, and then got the hell out of Dodge. And yeah, it is. And this is a very small Hyper sample size here with people that that do give money and such. And I say it, I can't remember it at a lower point, and I'm sure that it has. It's just, unfortunately, at a point right now that seems like it's either common ground or, it's territory that some have gotten used to. And I think it's more like that than it is to me anything else. And that's kind of how I felt being down there today. But you're right in what you say.
Yeah, it is. It is very. Man, hey, so were these the over 40 crowd in the Hyper with you?
Oh, I shot the hell. I shot the lights out today. I felt great.
Ooh.
Yeah, felt great.
Man,
I've dumped 65 pounds, so I'm running the floor, and the Hyper courts are shorter, so I can really run that floor. So.
All right. So were you? Here's the real question.
Yeah.
Were you playing legit defense, or were you playing legit defense or Pacers? Spurs defense.
I was. This is how I explained this to Tom Crean. I was talking a lot, and when I talk a lot, that normally covers up for how hard I'm playing on defense. So I'm calling out screens and such, but really, it's not my communication that this is about. It's more about me acting like I'm engaged and playing strong defense when, in fact, I'm half-assing it.
Well, hey, all I know is I recall in our days for those people who don't know, we used to have the media runs over at Butler on Tuesdays, and JMV's ability to run the court went from top of the key to top of the key.
It did. I've changed.
And mind you, I tell you, he had half court range back in the day, but the word defense was not in his vocabulary. So you drop that 65, and all of a sudden you're out there looking like Ben Wallace locking cats down.
Mike, I'm going to go down to 172. I'm going to lose about 15 more, something like that. 172, 170, that area, and then I'm going to see where I am. So.
Hey, well, I'm looking to run into you. Hey, real quick, I'm about to break a rule, so hopefully I get invited back next week. But I got to give a shout out to Quality Heating and Cooling because my furnace went on the fritz, and they gave me the best deal. So props to them for taking care of the Wells household. Because if not, I might have been. I would have had your favorite member of the Wells household would have been hot at me had I not taken care of that furnace.
Mike Wells of ESPN Radio on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Way to play along with that.
Yeah, hey, I'm just saying it's cold outside, man. Where's our favorite
HSC. HSC coming up tomorrow evening, I think. Lady, HSC tomorrow evening. And, hey, next time I play down there, I got to run here. Next time I play down there, I'll give you a call, and you can come out and play too.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not playing a lick of defense.
Yeah, don't worry about
it. I'm going to run the offense. I ain't playing no defense. Have a great weekend, brother.
All right, right back at you. Tell the fam I said hello. Mike Wells of ESPN Radio on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline with not the right. Yeah. Come on, man. It's all right, man. As long as everybody gets fixed, it's all good. That didn't sound right either. What the hell? Quick break. We'll come back. Tom Crean, re-rack coming up after 6 as well. Stay right there. The last word also this evening. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Get those Billy Idol tickets right now, number 9 at 239-1070. Came dancing to my door. Ruoff's going to have a great show of Billy Idol and Joan Jett this summer, so be a part of that. In fact, you can just by listening, number 9 at 239-1070. We'll win those right now. Going to be a great show. Billy Idol's awesome. Promise you're going to love it. JMV, did you happen to see the debate last night on TNT regarding Jimmy Butler and his situation in Miami? I did. Completely disagreed with Shaquille O'Neal. He was, basically siding with Jimmy Butler and justifying half-assing a situation to be a problem to expedite you getting the hell out of Dodge. I think because you're already signed up for 2 more years and making like $50 million, the rest of the set, whether it was Barkley or Kenny Smith or Ernie, they were accurate about it. So somebody had said, I think it was SPT that said, this is the reason that turns me off of the NBA. I'm not turned off by the NBA because I just love basketball too much. But I do agree that if you do care that much about the finances of it and the way that somebody can wreck things, as Jimmy Butler's wrecking the situation for his own benefit to get the hell out, I can understand why that would turn problematic and turn you off. It doesn't to me, because this is not the first time this dude's been disgruntled someplace, and he's helped out by the past in some postseason moments. If I'm anybody else right now, there's no way I'd want to jack with that. None. And you can argue, well, he's still got enough in the tank to help somebody, in a late season run, a playoff run. But, at some point it's going to end up like that. You just do. And I've mentioned this about coaches before. They have a shelf life, and a lot of these players have a shelf life. So I did see that, and while I know it does turn some off, it just doesn't me, I guess. I just think whatever. And we'll see where this ends up going. Hey, you got Boilermakers, Michigan later on tonight. Dusty May was on the show earlier this week. If you missed that, the podcast at 1075thefan.com. Fantastic conversation. Tip time, 8 o'clock from Mackey Arena in West Lafayette. A week from tonight, you get IU Purdue Part 1 at Mackey Arena on at 8 o'clock on a Friday night. Next week, Tom's Watch Bar. Next week, Tavern Tour Stop at Workingman's Friend. We're going to have a busy one for you out there as well. All right, quick break. We shall return. James says Tom Crean will be re-racked. That and more coming up. We got, 3 minutes of Anything Goes, and then a little bit of Tom Crean from our conversation regarding Big Ten, IU, Purdue, and then some. That's coming up here after 6. The last word after that on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, let's maybe give you a couple of minutes of calls. And Tom Crean joined us earlier. We'll do that. Last word, bottom of the hour. Thank you all for joining us once again all day long. Pacers Part 2 in Paris tomorrow, 11:30 in the morning. Is the pregame. That tip time is at noon from Paris, France, the second of two. And here's hoping that the second is not the level of absolute stinking disaster that the first one was. Here's hoping. Don Fischer a little bit earlier, Mike Wells on the show also a little bit earlier, and Bob Lovell started things off going all the way back into the 3 o'clock hour. And good day, good Friday around here, too. I mentioned next week, Tom's Watch Bar. We're back downtown on Illinois. Every single street seemingly has construction on it right now. I actually came up Meridian, and I think they were carving that thing up, too, onto the railroad track downtown. So watch and navigate that, but you can still join us coming up. Next week, Tom's Watch Bar, and then a tavern tour stop will be at Workingman's Friend. Cannot wait for that. Absolute blast. So a busy week next week with us out and about. As I remind you, coming up on Sunday, 11 a.m., we've got IU basketball. IU across the hall on 93 WIBC for the pregame show. As Don joined us a little bit earlier, IU and Maryland. That tip is at noon from Bloomington. Butler tomorrow afternoon. I think that's a 4 o'clock start at Hinkle, and the return of Chris Holtman. You get DePaul, and you get Butler at Hinkle Fieldhouse coming up tomorrow afternoon. And then later on tonight, it's going to need to be a much better overall game. The second half was a stanker for the Boilermakers back on Tuesday night at home against Ohio State. You could kind of tell, too, in the first half that they weren't going to get it done, considering they were unable to stretch an advantage when Ohio State was giving them every conceivable opportunity to do it, and they did not do it. And then the second half, it was a mess. I think 45-29, somewhere in that neighborhood. It was Ohio State offensively, and Purdue just simply couldn't get anything done. You've got Michigan at Mackey Arena coming up later on tonight. That's an 8 o'clock start with Dusty May and the Michigan Wolverines. Dusty joined us earlier this week. That podcast at 1075thefan.com. And the matchup of Matt Painter and the Boilermakers again tonight. That tip time is at 8 o'clock. So busy week. Hey, by the way, if you're asking, yeah, the Pacers get back at home on Wednesday, as they're going to be matched up with Detroit at Cambridge Fieldhouse once they do return from Paris. Meantime, busy, as I mentioned, college basketball weekend, and what has been going wrong with the Hoosiers as of late, in particular the second half matchup they had with Northwestern that led to that loss on Wednesday night in Evanston. It is Tom Crean of ESPN Radio who joined us, the former Hoosier coach, a little bit earlier regarding that and a lot more on college basketball.